John has showed me about 5 times the ring video of me walking you out on Saturday, and my voice and my accent are killing me softly.
Oh my God, did John see Higgins and Karen kiss?
Defendant responded, yeah, he has cameras everywhere.
Oh my God.
Defendant said, he's like Christ. Are you guys hooking up? Question mark, question mark.
On this occasion that you go over there for the Patriots game, prior to that, had the two of you had any conversation, or had you been invited to go over there with reference to football games before?
Yes, a number of times at the hillside, you know, I was asked, you know, hey, we're going to watch the last half at the house. Do you want to come by? Things like that, yeah.
We're continuing our analysis of Brian Higgins, old Huggy Bear here. We know that he ended up kissing Karen Reed at John O'Keefe's house. But did that kiss spark a fire of love in this big boy? Let's find out.
And had you ever taken Mr. O'Keefe up on any of those prior invitations to come by the house and watch it?
No.
And so on this particular game, do you recall why it was that you took him up on it this time and went over?
The previous questions dealt with the fact that John O'Keefe invited this big boy over several times to watch the Patriots. For some reason, he finally accepted the invitation. Let's see.
I felt bad I had never been over there. I've been asked repeatedly. I knew it was probably going to be the last game for the season.
Or was it the fact that this was the only game Karen Reed secretly texted him to come over?
And I had also independently got a text of an invite from John himself, and then also from the defendant independently.
Now, in reference to you thinking it was going to be the last game of the season, do you recall, like, was it a regular season game, playoff game? Who were they playing? Do you recall any of that?
He didn't give a fuck. So long as Karen was going to be there, anyone could be playing.
I think it might have been the Bills. I don't know if it was
the Bills versus the Celtics.
Playoffs or it was just another game to me, but I knew it was probably going to be the last game.
And so if you recall that
Please, you knew Karen was going to be there.
evening, about what time was it that you stopped by Mr. O'Keefe's house?
Oh, it was like just before the game ended, not long after.
So pretty far into the second half of the game by the time you arrived.
Oh yeah.
Read from that text exchange, and if you could indicate sort of who's talking or who's saying it.
It says, TF, hurting like this in 10 years. Haha.
This is the text thread between John O'Keefe and Higgy Bear the day after he kissed Karen at his house.
I'm not sure who's saying that.
Not sure who's hurting and who's saying haha.
Well, I know I was definitely hurting that morning.
He wasn't hurting the night before.
All right, I see John. Was it necessary to introduce Hennessy XO? Was I really playing video games? That would have been me.
Was I really making out with your girlfriend?
And then it says, I blame Karen. Yup. And then I said, please tell me I didn't break your nephew's video game. If I did, I'll replace it. Did I throw a controller or some shit? And then it says, I don't think so. WTF, I'm hurting. How can you guys not be still in bed?
I wonder why Higgy didn't mention the fact that he made out with Karen.
And next, on what dates did you first receive any communication from Ms. Reed?
January 12th, 2022.
These dates are important, and we're going to go through a little bit of how these two lovebirds met. This is January 12th.
So initially, you received a text on that date from an unknown number, is that correct?
Yes. The blue bubbles would belong to myself.
So the other bubbles would be Ms. Reed, is that fair to say?
Yes.
And so that initial communication you received on January 12th, 2022, that's about 8:27 p.m., is that correct?
Yes.
And what was the content of the message that you received?
Hey, Brian, it's Weed Whacker.
And how did you respond to that?
Question mark.
You're going to see throughout this, he is absolutely clueless how to deal with women.
Is the Weed Whacker, what, if any, meaning did that have to you? Or
So ultimately, it was based off a interaction with the defendant, kind of a nickname that she adopted.
how did that nickname sort of come to be, or what, if anything, transpired between the two of you that led to that?
So I was leaving, I believe, my residence one day. I saw the defendant along the side of the house using a weed whacker.
God damn, now I know why all these guys love Karen. Beautiful, smart, an earner, And she's doing all the yard work for you.
Gave kind of a beep of the horn, and the defendant gave me the finger. So I realized that she clearly must not have recognized me possibly because of what I was driving. I was in my work vehicle. So I spun the vehicle around, and as I pulled up to roll down the window, she said something to the effect, "Get the fuck away from me. My husband's a Boston cop."
Woo, Karen's spunky.
And then I rolled down the window more, and she clearly recognized me,
And then she said, "Didn't you hear me? Get the fuck away from me."
who I was in that vehicle.
And did that become sort of a recurring theme in subsequent conversations that you had with Ms. Reed?
Yes.
I don't know. Is that love in Karen's eyes? There definitely is a little bit of a glow.
So again, I'm in the blue bubbles. Did you try those Smirnoff screwdrivers? I stopped at the Hilly for one last night. I said, haha, how did you get my digits? Defendant responded, the Melissa and Lito show. I said, haha, I thought you creeped John's phone. I said, haha, again. Defendant responded, no way. I was the last person in Greater Canton who didn't have your number. Of a short vacay with the current show, wanted to see if you were game. Vacation where? Defendant responded, I know. They need to happen organically. I'm the queen of nicknames. Was just going to rent a beach house in, I believe it was supposed to say Fort Lauderdale, it's abbreviated. Something quick and easy. Defendant responded, I'm the queen of vacays too, always a good time. I responded, I'm going to Nashville next month, 19 to 21st, for a benefit. One of our guys got shot in the head. You guys should come.
What a romantic. Higgy Bear, you don't have to mention the cop got shot in the head, especially when you're trying to romance a girl.
The defendant said, no, you're not a creep. I said, nope. She said, you're kind of a loner, which I used to be. I responded, no, not really. I have a ton of buddies, but I only let a handful of friends in that I'm tight with. And then I typed circle of trust in quotes.
Some circle of trust. The second John turns his back, you're making out with his girlfriend.
I'm in the blue bubbles again. I said, I just got a Saturday invite.
Now we're leading up to the big first kiss. That Saturday invite refers to the Patriots game where these two lovers will finally make out.
The defendant said, did you say yes, question mark? I said, not yet, with a bunch of periods. We'll probably do cards or something at some point. I'm inviting you. And I said, haha. The defendant said, John said Brian's being wishy-washy now, in quotes. I responded, haha, did you tell him you texted me? The defendant responded, no. And then I gave a thumbs up.
Bingo. When you're trying to initiate an affair, you want the person to give you some inclination that they will go behind their partner's back, and clearly this is that.
In blue is going to be myself again. Foul ball. Defendant responded, you stink. I said, you suck and you're double trouble. Defendant responded, you're hot. I responded, are you serious or messing with me? Defendant responded, no, I'm serious. I responded, feeling is mutual. Is that bad? How long have you thought that? Defendant responded, are you okay driving? You don't want to stay here.
Bingo again. Wow. Karen is giving all the signal that she is down to hook up.
I responded back, I'm fine. I have an office at the PD. You didn't answer the question.
Karen asked him to sleep over. Can't get more obvious than that. And the dope says, oh, I'll sleep at the police station.
And then it starts to say, defendant said, rather you stay here.
And is that, to your memory, when is that text exchange taking place? In reference to the night that you went over to
Rather you stay here. And he still doesn't get the point.
the O'Keefe's house?
I believe it was that night.
At Mr. O'Keefe's house on that particular evening, do you recall how you came into the house?
Believe it might have been the front door.
Obviously wasn't sure if he can use the back door yet.
If you know about how long were you at Mr. O'Keefe's house that night?
I was probably one of the last people to leave, I think.
And what, if anything, happened as you were exiting from Mr. O'Keefe's house that night?
So as I was exiting the house, it was either through the breezeway or the garage, and as we were walking out, the defendant planted a kiss on me.
Now, before you went out that way, where was Mr. O'Keefe? Did you say goodbye to him or anything like that?
I think I said goodbye to him. He might have been in the bathroom. I'm not 100% positive where he was.
And when you went to leave, which exit from the house were you headed to initially?
Well, as I said, I don't remember exactly if it was the breezeway or the garage I was starting to walk through, but whichever way I started to exit, the defendant told me to go a different way.
And which way did the defendant tell you to go?
Not the back door.
Well, her way. I honestly can't tell you which door that was. If it was either the breezeway or the garage.
As you were going out, again, I'm sorry, what happened?
The defendant kissed me.
And how did she kiss you?
Not like a friend.
Lip to lip, is that fair to say?
Yes.
Like a romantic kiss?
That's the way I interpreted it.
Is this dope that clueless? She kissed you? We kissed. Lip to lip. Attorneys are so lame.
Were you still inside the house at the time that this occurred, or were you outside the house, if you know?
Not sure if we had just got to the outside or not. I'm not sure if it was close proximity to leaving.
And what was your reaction to that?
Yeehaw!
I was taken back.
Is that something that you were expecting?
No.
And about how long was it between when the defendant kissed you and when you left?
Is he that clueless on how to have an affair? Karen asked him to sleep over. Not once, but twice. And he was shocked that she kissed him once?
Oh, almost immediately.
When you indicated that when you left, Karen gave you a kiss goodbye, correct?
Yes.
It's safe to say that that was not some hot, passionate, long kiss, but you think it was more than just a friendly peck, correct?
I wouldn't describe it as a peck. I'd describe it as more than friends. It was a kiss.
I describe it as hot.
You did describe it as a peck, didn't you?
When?
When you texted Karen Reed and she said it was just a peck, and then you texted back, I agree.
Figure of speech.
Or the truth, right?
Figure of speech. So I'm in the blue bubbles, and I said, I think you're messing with me. The defendant said, why do you think that? I responded, because this is so out of left field. Where did these feelings come from? Defendant responded, I just think you're like me. Defendant responded, I don't know. I said, shouldn't you know? Defendant responded, do you like me? I said, yes, from jump. Defendant said, when was jump? I said, first time I saw you.
There you have it. Love at first sight. Men fall in love with what we see, and that happens a lot. What doesn't happen a lot is the girl that we actually fall in love with contacting us unsolicited. And even more rare is actually consummating a relationship with the person that we fall in love with. But it happened here to Big Higgy.
When was that? When were you interested? Defendant responded, I don't know, you're just my type. I responded, you think you can handle me? I thought you were happy, question mark. Defendant responded, how do you know if I'm happy? I said, I just assumed.
Nobody in a relationship is happy, especially if you're married with kids.
Defendant responded, are you hard to handle? I may have put a question mark. Then I said, what do you like about me? Defendant responded, I just feel like you're from my neighborhood. I said, yes, yeah, ditto. Defendant responded, and I think you're hot.
You're hot.
You really think that? I have always thought that about you. Defendant responded, what? I responded that you're hot, smart, witty, but I didn't think you were interested. Defendant responded, witty? I responded, yeah, meaning quick with a response. Tell me why you got my number and reached out to me. Defendant responded, just thought we were the same / from the same neighborhood.
My God, Higgy is clueless. But we also know he's in love.
John has showed me about 5 times the ring video of me walking you out on Saturday, and my voice and my accent are killing me softly.
Oh my God, did John see Higgins and Karen kiss?
With an emoji of somebody throwing up. I responded, what? Defendant responded, yeah, he has cameras everywhere, you cops, with another emoji.
Oh my God.
I responded, Jesus. Defendant said, he's like Christ. Are you guys hooking up? Question mark, question mark. And I said, OMG, great.
Holy shit, maybe John did know. In part 2, we'll go deeper into this theory. But it looks to me like John had an inkling and maybe had some video evidence of Higgy Bear and Karen kissing. That would make a lot of sense. And that might answer the question why these two were so angry just hours before John O'Keefe died.